Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it is time to talk about the BT-7 F-32. Now this is the first vehicle that you could unlock for the Operation H.E.A.T event, and it is a light tank of rank 2 battle rating 3.0 with all of the bells and whistles of a normal BT tank, but with an added 76mm F-32. Now this is another vehicle which joins the premium area of 3.0 light vehicles. The US have the Boarhound, the Germans have the SDKFC 2344, and of course the British have the AEC armoured car. So overall we now have our fourth 3.0, and I'm just wondering what Japan, Italy and France are going to get for theirs, if I'm quite honest. And if you've ever played any of these vehicles, they're incredibly fun to play. They're generally quite fast, quite nippy, very good guns on them, and also great for the scouting role. Normally scouting is more of an added benefit for these vehicles because of their power and speed and normally how good their gun is. So instead of a vehicle like some of the AMXs, like the AMX 13 H.E.A.T, which to me is much more of a scout vehicle than an out-and-out killer, the BT-7 F-32, along with its compatriots at 3.0, are more killer first and then scouting second. As I said, it has all of the bells and whistles of the BT series, so that comes with the steering issues, the suspension, transmission, the engine, the driver, all have. So if you don't know what this is, generally the vehicle tends to oversteer quite a lot, so you have to correct for that. This is something that happens on stuff like the A13s and the BT series, so if you've ever played any of them, you know what I'm talking about. What was kind of interesting when the BT-7 F-32, before it was added, I was kind of wondering whether it would get a smoke shell or not, because we have two examples of this gun before the BT-7 F-32 on the KV-1E and the KV-1B for Germany, and the B variant for Germany did not get a smoke shell. Now it seems like the BT-7 F-32 does have a smoke shell, therefore it's more like the KV-1E gun, which would make a lot more sense. So if you want to use smoke as a secondary tool to try and get out of dodge or try and get to a position, you're able to do that, but generally what I've found is the speed of the F-32 is good enough just to fly about the place anyway without the requirement of smoke. So, as I said, because of the speed of this thing, the main way I've been using it is as a very aggressive vehicle, as a very aggressive scout. So, getting around the enemy lines, being able to try and stop that second wave of reinforcements that always comes in at lower tiers because of the fact that SB costs are so low, so you have to make sure to clamp down on them. Putting artillery near the point that you are contesting over to make sure to cause some panic, and also because the artillery is incredibly strong at this tier, and instead of using your armor to really do anything since you pretty much have none, moving around quickly to get to better positions. So kill somebody if you think you've been seen or someone's going to come after you, make sure to move a little bit, shoot the next person, so on and so forth, and just keep doing that. Now one of the problems I thought I would run into with this gun is the penetration isn't the best on it, and if you get up-tiered, you can get up to 4.0 technically, since this is a 3.0 vehicle. There are some tanks around that BR which do have a decent amount of armor, but do they have 80mm of armor is the question you have to ask yourself. Stuff like the Churchill Mark 1 does have 80mm of armor on it, so if you run into some of the heavier vehicles, you're definitely going to have to get around the side of them with the main gun that you're using. And overall, it's not too much of an issue, since, as I said, the general playstyle, at least for me, is to try and get around the sides and try and, use it like that instead of a head-on-head combatant. Because it's a rank 2 as well, it's actually the second the second BR 3.0 vehicle that you have for the Soviets. So you have the BTR-152A, the AA guns, or the AA machine, and the BT-7 F-32. But because it's rank 2, it's kind of nice that you are able to research rank 3, 2 and 1 effectively in this machine, and there is a lot of really fun vehicles at this tier for the Soviets. The T-50 is incredibly fun, the T-28E at 2.7, the T-34s, they start at 3.3 and all the way way up to 5.7 are just really fun to play. So the BT-7 can easily fit into a lot of these lineups, depending on how passively you want to use it. So the fact is, with the BT-7, at 3.0, the lineup itself that you can pull up around it, if you don't have specific gift premiums, it's actually not very strong. You're going to have to really pull your hand out to make sure that you can carry in this thing. Because if you don't, you are backed up by a BTR-152A and a choice of either the T-28E, which can be unreliable because of its large size and also the fact that its gun doesn't always pen, and the T-50, which is of course a monster. So the fact is, the T-50 is incredibly good, decent penetration, very good armor, and also incredibly light as well, so it flies about the place at a hell of a click, and it has over 100mm of penetration if needed. Most of the time you don't need that at that BR. So at least you do have a lineup which is kind of there for ground, but it's not as strong as a lot of other lineups for the Soviets, such as the 3.7 lineup, incredibly strong. The 4.3 one is also incredibly strong for the Soviets. And the problem really comes in when you look at aircraft. So I'm running this thing with Prokryshkin's P-39N-0 and also the Lag 334. Now these are two gift vehicles, they're two incredibly powerful gift vehicles, but I understand that the majority of the time people are not going to have these vehicles. So if you have a look at the trees and see what you can bring in space of these, you're very limited in your options. You've got the LA-5, which is a very good machine, but it's not the strongest, and also it struggles with the ground attacking capabilities since it only has 250s, so you have to use that as pretty much an air superiority fighter. You got the Yak-9, which is pretty strong, but once again, very limited in the ground strike role. You got the Yak-9B, which is a better option. It's a little bit heavier than the Yak-9, but you do get some cool bombs in a really interesting area. If you haven't actually unlocked the Yak-9, I would really recommend it, just because it gives you something different on the battlefield, especially in ground forces. The IL-4 as well, which can carry a big bomb load, but it's also massive. It can also carry a torpedo, if you didn't know that, which is kind of fun. But the bomb load for this is absolutely massive. I see it as kind of a mini P-8 in ground forces because of what it can do, and of course the IL-2 series in the form of the 1942, which can carry a decent amount of stuff as well. But you can see that none of these really fit great in an actual lineup itself. Instead, what you have is vehicles which aren't as good as some of the counterparts that they're going to have from other nations. Like if I look at 3.0 for the Germans, what you find is the E4. Now you find stuff like the E3, the C7 BF-110, or the C6, which was just added BF-110, the H.E.A.T, which can do the job of the IL-4 and even better, the H-16, which even massively outdoes it, and even stuff like the H.E.100. So there are definitely holes in this 3.0 lineup that the BT-7 finds itself, which you will have to either fill in through skill, through the BT-7, because your secondary vehicle is nowhere near going to be as good as your first, or you're going to have those rare premiums in the form of the Lag 334 and Prokryshkin's to pull you through in the air game. So that is definitely something to think about. Another thing though is, because it's a scout, because it's fast, you don't always have to play it at its BR. You can up tier it if you want to, and other things as well. If you have a look at the scouts that are on offer for the Soviets, there aren't many to really be seen around these BRs. The one after that you actually get after the BT-7 is the ASU-57 at 4.3. So you have a bracket if you want to scout of 3.0 to 4.3 where you can take this thing. So if you want to run it with the T-34-42 and the KV-1L11 at that really strong 3.7 lineup, I'll definitely say go for it. You know, its gun is good enough, especially if you use the speed to get around the sides of vehicles. The scouting, as long as your keen vision's good enough, you know, it's going to be useful for you. And also, it's just a fun vehicle. Just like all of these lower tier armored cars that I keep thinking armored cars because all the other ones are armored cars, but of course the BT-7 is tracked. But it's just like a lot of the other vehicles that you find around this BR, which are gift vehicles. Fast, fun, and just fantastic to play. I just wish that it had stuff around it at its BR which you could really home in on that 3.0 area, because there are other nations out there which do have that, and they will just can you if you don't have, if you don't have enough things. Also, as well, if we look at it just from a general point of view, the 7.2 second reload that at least harbors my BT-7 right now, which is a base 8.19 and can get to 6.3 seconds, around 3.0 is kind of slow. So if you are engaging an enemy, make sure that you shoot to kill. This isn't too hard to do. There's a lot of enemies out there which are very easy to one-shot with this 76mm, but just understand it might be worth just taking that extra second, especially just waiting for your suspension just to calm down before you shoot. And in that time, while you're setting up the shots, you can use that to get out your binoculars while you're stationary and scout the enemy before you hit it. Because if you are shooting an enemy and you don't kill it, you're going to have to move very quick, because you're going to get return fire incredibly quickly. And the 3-man crew on this, I've only survived one shot mainly from this, and that shot went straight through my turret, only hit one person, and the reason why I survived was because of the fact that it didn't detonate and it just went straight through, and also somehow missed all the ammo that sat around the loader there. What is also interesting is there's no first stage ammo rack on this machine, or at least there's not one labeled, so you don't really have to worry too much about the first stage ammo rack, even though in my opinion there should be. The first stage ammo rack should be right next to the loader's head, as it is in the hangar and as is in the game. And the extra machine gun on the top doesn't seem to make too much of a difference to really anything. In my opinion, it's just kind of dead weight, because as an anti-aircraft gun, there aren't too many aircraft to worry too much about at the tier of 3.0, and also an extra 7.62 isn't really going to do anything. So for me, I would actually kind of like to remove it, so I wouldn't be as tall to be seen by other vehicles. Instead, I'd like to be a bit more sneaky and rushing around. Another thing as well is the exhausts give off massive fumes, so if you're facing people who have pretty good graphics settings, they'll see you from a mile away with these exhaust fumes coming up if they don't hear you, since this engine is also quite loud as well. But overall, I've really enjoyed my time in this thing. All of these 3.0 gift premiums are really fun to play, and I hope that we keep getting more of these fun vehicles. And just as a last note, since I haven't really talked about my opinion on all of the vehicles, since this is the last review, I think they're all great gift vehicles. Apart the P-59, there needs to be a tech tree equivalent for it personally, but all of the others are perfect. And on top of this as well, they're fun. I haven't seen many complaints at all about these vehicles, because they all are interesting. They're not meta-defining as well, apart from maybe this BT-7, with the fact that it's very easy to get in planes with it, and also because there's not really anything else at its BR, but hopefully that changes soon with the addition of something else. So, not really meta-defining for many of these vehicles, but they're all fun to play and they all have their own little gimmicks. That to me is always a positive, and I'm happy to see them all in the game. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Mopar 1969, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, and Eel of Goats, and of course Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.